Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is September 3rd. Today is day 333. The World Health Organization said that it's ahead of its targets for the polio vaccinations in Gaza and had inoculated about 25% of children under the age of 10 years old. The Israeli Air Force attacked a building belonging to Na'ama College they said by Hamas in Gaza City. The college was attacked in the last 24 hours. Reports in Gaza said 4 people were killed and several were wounded in the attack. Several Israeli army reservists crossed into Gaza and assaulted Palestinian truck drivers working for international aid agencies last month. This was reported by Haaretz. They learned that these drivers had been vetted by the Shin Bet, which confirmed that they were neither Hamas members nor suspected of terrorism. The IDF has footage of the incident, but no one involved has been prosecuted or summoned for questioning thus far. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday defended his plans for a continued Israeli presence on the Philadelphia corridor, a demand that has delayed the ceasefire hostage negotiations. In a rare news conference, Netanyahu apologized for not being able to bring home 6 hostages alive. And he said that the withdrawal from the area would signal to Hamas that killing hostages leads to concessions. A press conference held last night by Netanyahu, where he argued that Israel will never leave the Philadelphia corridor, has torpedoed mediators' attempts to renew ceasefire hostage negotiations. A source familiar with the talks told CNN. And Hamas warned that more hostages could be returned to their families in shrouds if a ceasefire is not reached. That was reported by the Washington Post. Hamas has been operating under new instructions since June on how to handle hostages should Israeli forces approach their locations in Gaza. The group's armed wing said yesterday. This announcement came after the announcement of the 6 hostages being shot dead by their captors, which it's believed that happened late last week. Hamas released an undated video of Israeli hostage Eden Yerushalmi, who was murdered by Hamas. Her body was returned on Sunday, in which she says to her family, "I want to address my dear family that I love and miss so much. Mom, Dad, Shani, and May, I love you so much and I miss you." Israeli union leaders agreed to halt a nationwide strike yesterday afternoon after 8 hours. Since it began, the decision followed an Israeli court ruling yesterday that they had not given enough notice to stop work. The New York Times reported, and the Israeli military said that it killed a Hamas commander who appeared in a video from October 7th. Extremist Israeli settlers were rapidly seizing West Bank land. The BBC just published an analysis. And in the West Bank, a 16-year-old girl was killed by IDF fire in the village of Dan near Jenin. The Palestinian Health Ministry reported this is the 6th day the IDF has been operating in Jenin in incursions that began in the northern West Bank last Wednesday. The Israeli security forces mapped out the home of a Palestinian who killed 3 police officers in Tarkamiya checkpoint near Hebron on Sunday, according to the IDF. The UK yesterday suspended certain arms sales to Israel. I talked about this. They said that there's a clear risk that the equipment could be used to commit serious international law violations. Foreign Secretary David Lammy said the move suspends 30 of 350 arms exports to Israel. Netanyahu called the decision shameful and said it would only embolden Hamas. The Israeli Justice Ministry officials expect the International Criminal Court to decide in coming days on whether or not to issue those arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant, but they're cautiously optimistic that the court will decide against the warrants. However, officials within the government refuse to set up a state commission of inquiry still, which is quite contentious about the October 7th attacks, as has been recommended by the Attorney General in Israel, along with facts that Israel has been lagging in its own investigations of alleged war crimes, which could strengthen the likelihood that the court would accept the chief prosecutor Karim Khan's request for the warrants. President Biden told reporters yesterday that Netanyahu is not doing enough to get a ceasefire and hostage deal. He spoke shortly after a meeting with Vice President Harris and the National Security Team, where they discussed next steps in the ongoing efforts to secure the release of hostages, continuing consultations with the Qataris and Egyptians. Finally, the U.S. and allies captured a leader of the self-styled Islamic State group who helped members of the militia escape a detention center in Syria. CENTCOM announced yesterday, and the Yemeni Houthis attacked 2 crude oil tankers and 1 Saudi flagged and another Panama flagged in the Red Sea yesterday. That's an update from the last 24 hours. I'm traveling from the West Coast back to the East Coast. So sorry for the quick update. May God go before us.